Kaz Aston is a keen golfer, clay pigeon shooter, and has been yacht racing. She also has multiple sclerosis. 18 years ago, 2 weeks before her final nursing exams, she was diagnosed with the neurological condition that affects the nervous system. She took her exams anyway and qualified as a nurse. Back then, the treatment options for MS sufferers were steroids and not much else. In the intervening 2 decades, the treatments have changed as new drugs have become available. But do we understand the condition better? MS is known to be debilitating, but strangely some people have it in what is called a benign form. What does that mean? For Kaz, it's entirely possible to have MS and to be an adventurous sports person. To counter the myths of MS and impart the lessons she's learnt over the last 18 years, she has written the Really Clear Guide to MS with the help of a consultant neurologist, and that'll be available on her website from tomorrow. She's with me now. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And sitting alongside you is Dr. Sarah Jarvis. So tell us, if you're listening, how you cope with MS, if that is the disease that you have. What was it like the day you found out? Do get in touch, vine@bbc.co.uk, or you can call us, of course, 0500 288 291. So Kaz, tell us how it all started, the day you found out that you had this disease.
Well, the day I found out I had the disease was after quite a lot of tests and waiting and wanting to find out, obviously, as quick as I could. But it was a bit of a waiting game, to be honest. So when I finally found out, which, as you said, was 2 weeks before my finals, it was a big relief in certain respects, but also a bit scary.
What were the symptoms at that time?
Well, I was having problems where I lost the sight in one of my eyes, optic neuritis, and my medical team that were looking after me as a student nurse was saying, well, we've got to keep a close eye on you. Have you got any other problems? But for me to start off with, it was linked to my eyesight and blurring in one of my eyes. And that was the main problem that I experienced that led me to find out I had MS.
And what is this, 18 years ago? So you've been on quite a journey since
Yes, it has. I mean, it doesn't seem that long ago, and I think maybe you think that as you get older, but, I just wanted to sort of, I reflect, it's like, gosh, yes, 18 years ago. So it's been a really quite exciting as well journey because I've learned so much.
But when they diagnosed it, what were they having to do? Was it blood tests or what?
Well, they did a range of tests, which include MRI scans to look at if there was any damage on the brain. They took some fluid out of my spine, a lumbar puncture. They did nerve tests to see if I had proper reactions with these electrical things that were connected to my body. And of course, they were looking at neurological examinations following my eyes, asking me to walk a straight line, which I couldn't actually. And I was quite shocked about that, why I couldn't put the third foot in front of the other. And I'm thinking, no, it's not alcohol. It's nothing to do with being a student nurse. But I just couldn't do it. And it was some of those things that I was living with and I didn't even know, because you're so busy, you're carrying on.
And I mentioned the different kinds of MS, and there is a spectrum, isn't there? And there's the really progressive sort. And what sort have you got?
Well, I prefer to call it active or non-active because I do find all of those sorts confusing. But for me, if you want to go to that, it's relapsing, remitting, and it's under control, which is great news. And that's, how I am at the moment. So
when you first were diagnosed, did they put you straight on steroids?
No. When I first found out, they said I had mild MS. And because I'd had this problem with my eye, this optic neuritis, they'd done tests and they said, well, it's mild MS. And then it was only after I did my finals that I had my first relapse. And that was different things with pins and needles all over my body. My balance was even worse. And I just couldn't understand why it happened so quickly and so fast. It's like wake up and your body just doesn't feel normal.
And so that suggests something progressive, but then you come back from that, do you?
Well, then I saw my medical team and they gave me some intravenous steroids. And I must be honest, they worked really quickly on me. And that got me back into a nice, stable place. And the pins and needles went and, my eyesight settled down. And I carried on and, carried on with my nursing.
And you were determined not to let it stop you living your life. So tell us more about about what you did with MS.
Well, after I found out I had MS, first of all, I looked at all the local things that I could do. I tried various hyperbaric MS treatments because I trained with the Royal Naval Nurses and there was a treatment option for that. I looked at all the lifestyles. I was taking loads of different supplements. You know, I was reading as much information and I did find it a bit confusing. But I really looked at trying to find out as much as I could. And then how I could explain it to people like my family so they didn't get too upset. You know, that was tough. And I carried on with my fundraising and my charity until really I had a bad sort of situation where I had a bad relapse with my MS. And
so you had some blood poisoning, is that right?
Well, it was a reaction. We were just talking about this a moment ago because it was a very, very, very rare reaction and I was offered various ways forward. And my consultant, you know, who's been fantastic, decided that the best way was to have some steroids, give my body a break, and then start a brand new drug treatment, which I'm still taking now, and it's great. So it was let's watch, let's see, let's look at the options, which I had several. And then I decided to follow my consultant, Dr. Nicholas's recommendations. It took a bit more time than I'd like, I must be honest. I had to work on my balance because it wasn't very good at all. But with the physios and the teams, I kept looking at ways to manage that, really.
So how, in terms of the last 18 years, how tell us about how the disease has affected you and is affecting you now. Can you see that it's taken a toll over that time, or are you holding it off?
Well, I think, to be honest, it's really motivated me to want to get the best out of my life. So I've probably done a lot more than maybe I would have done with trying these extreme sports and, you know, drag racing and sailing. So it's had a really motivational impact. And it's also, I suppose, inspired me to want to, being a nurse, help other people understand. Because I've found through a lot of patients that I've seen as a district nurse, a lot of my friends, they just don't understand. They get confused and they're saying to me, Karen, can we just get something simple without all the big medical words so we can try and understand this and be there for you as your friends, as your family, and maybe not suggest things that aren't the best. So that's why I decided to write my Really Clear Guide to MS, to help people understand the basics.
And do tell people where they can find it.
Yes, it's available. Actually, it's available from today because I was so excited. It's at KazAston.com. There's a link to the Really Clear Guide and you can translate it into over 60 different languages because I felt that's important for people to have a chance to understand, even if, you know, they're not from England, but they're in London.
Well, Sarah Jarvis is listening, and I'm sure you think it's a great thing.
I think it's an absolutely fantastic thing, and what was so lovely was to hear Kaz. We were chatting earlier, and she was saying, I'm not sure I want to talk about myself. I'm really good about talking about helping other people. I really don't like talking about me, and she's quite right. She just lights up when she talks about helping other people, and I think this is an absolutely essential thing because I spend a lot of my time, I describe it as translating from medical into English, and I spend a lot of my time, whether it's writing articles or talking to patients, obviously as I do until, you know, half an hour before I arrived here, I was trying to translate from medical into English, but it's really difficult if you don't speak English, and the idea of having 60 different languages available I think is fantastic. It's a terrifying diagnosis to get. I think one of the worst experiences I still remember as a medical student was seeing a young man come in and be given the diagnosis when he knew what it had done to his father. His father had been diagnosed. And if you've got a family member, so a mother, a father, a brother or a sister who's got MS, you're about 10 times more likely to get it yourself.
Is that right?
Yeah, about 1 in 1,000 people in the country get it, about twice as many women as men. But if you've got a family member, brother, sister or parent, you've got about a 1 in 100 chance.
OK, well, Kaz Aston, thank you very much for coming in. We're going to talk some more about this with Sarah Jarvis. By the way, the link to Kaz's website, the Really Clear Guide to MS, is on our Radio 2 Facebook page, so you can find it there. Do call us if you've been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis or somebody in your family has. Questions for Dr. Sarah Jarvis after this. Really wish Kaz Aston all the best. MS sufferer, 18 years she's had it, also a nurse, has this Really Clear Guide to MS on, and it's on Twitter and it's on our Facebook page and all that. So
it is, and of course the great thing is she has proved that she is a person first. She is Kaz Aston first, somebody who happens to suffer from an MS. She's not defined by her MS, and I think this is one of the things my patients really worry about. But is it going to take over my life?
How quickly after you see somebody and you diagnose them as having MS do you tell them which one one it is? Because if it's the progressive sort, it's not the sort that Kaz has. What's the prognosis there?
Well, it's incredibly variable, and this is one of the big issues. One of the reasons it takes quite a long time to develop is that we can't diagnose somebody with having MS unless they've had at least 2 different sets of symptoms at different times and in different bits of their body. So Kaz had the most common first presentation of MS, which is inflammation in one eye. So you get pain and or loss of vision usually in one eye. And about 1 in 4 people with MS, that's the first symptom they get. But people can get that and then never go on to have anything else. So they're then in this kind of in limbo because not much else causes that sort of symptom. And you have to say to them, well, it could be MS, but we're going to have to wait for you to have another attack, basically, before we can tell you for certain.
But it's something to do with the sheaths on the nerves.
It is. It's not the nerves themselves. It's an autoimmune disease. So we often talk about autoimmune diseases on this show. We've had rheumatoid arthritis.
Lupus we did.
We did lupus. We did inflammatory bowel disease, so Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. This is another example of where the body, which is supposed to protect us, our own body's immune system is supposed to fight off infection, it turns on a particular body and sees that as an invader. And what's happening here is it's not destroying the nerves, it's destroying the insulation around the nerves. So it's called the myelin sheath. And basically, it's a bit like if you think about if you had your wiring in your house and all the wiring in your house was bare wires, well, that would be just a fire or an accident or whatever waiting to happen. So all the wires in your electrical circuits are all protected. That's what's happening here. You get inflammation of the insulation around them. That will stop the nerves from working properly. Once that settles down, usually in relapsing, remitting, the kind that comes and goes, then the nerves start working normally again. But what happens is that sooner or later you get scar tissue because of that inflammation, and that's called sclerosis. And because it happens in lots of bits of your brain and your nervous system, it's called multiple sclerosis.
The diseases that are caused by the body's own immune system attacking itself are some of the worst.
They are horrible. They really are. And this one is only attacking one bit, but it's such an absolutely fundamental bit of your body. As we discussed when we were talking about lupus, that can attack several different bits.
Holly Hanbley in Truro says, I was diagnosed at 24. I have a weekly injection. I take 8 or 9 other medications to keep me going. I like to be up and doing things. With MS patients, what you see on the outside is often completely different to what's going on inside. I work in an MS therapy centre in St Austell, and I found the biggest therapy is just everyone getting together and having a laugh.
Hear, hear.
Janet Gotland is in New Milton in Hampshire and says, 3 years ago I slipped on the ice, fracturing my skull. I later had double vision and I went for an MRI scan, and the doctors told me not only that I had MS, but from the scan they could tell me I'd had it since 1985. I couldn't believe it. I just laughed. Since then I've had to deal with it one day at a time. That's odd. I'm very surprised that they knew how long Janet had it for. Of course, the good news is that if she's had it for all that time without knowing, she's probably got what you were describing as the benign kind, because some people only get a few episodes in their lives, and some of them are never diagnosed. Vicky Allen in Horsham, West Sussex. You've just been diagnosed quite recently, Vicky.
Yes, I have. I was diagnosed last November.
And is that after having the kind of symptoms we've been discussing, or something else?
I had a fall. I fell down the stairs in June last year. I didn't have at the time, and I fell sort of on my head. At the time, I had a CT scan, but I didn't have an MRI scan. Mm-hmm. And I started to get really bad vision in one eye. And then I had mini stroke symptoms, like one side of me was quite weak. So they did the MRI scan and found the demyelination. Yeah,
which is Sarah's talking about.
The inflammation of the sheath around the nerves.
And they found the white spots.
Yeah,
they're like the neurologist showed me. They look like white spots on your skull or brain.
It's interesting that 2 people, you and Janet, have both talked about having a fall and it being diagnosed after that. I think I ought to point out, as far as we're aware, there's no connection between the two, except I suppose the only thought that crosses my mind is, was your balance actually affected, and therefore were you more likely to fall rather than did the fall cause your MS?
Because, of course, we didn't know why. I mean, I fell top to bottom.
Was this a chicken or egg situation?
And
was your balance already affected?
Was it a trip or was it my balance?
Yeah.
And we would never know that. But obviously since then I've had the lumbar punctures. I've actually just been out of hospital under a week because I had some seizures, which they feel are connected to all the steroids I've been having.
How are you feeling about the whole thing, Vicky? Because this is difficult territory now, isn't it?
It's hard. I'm off work. I can't drive. I feel because I can't do what I want to do because of my balance and my vision. My vision totally takes over. Even writing, because I can't see properly, it affects writing and sort of day-to-day things at the moment until I can get stabilised on the right medication. So consequently, I feel totally helpless and I just want to be me again.
Have you got some support, Vicky?
Yeah, my GP is absolutely fantastic.
Good.
And I can ring him any time to talk to him.
Sure.
I also see the neurologist because they can't because I am quite bad with it at the moment. They can't tell what grade I've got.
Right. So they don't know if it's going to come and go.
Yeah.
Have you spoken?
Because I've been having it quite a lot. The relapses I've probably had about since last November, about 6.
Right. Oh, sorry.
And my walking's getting worse and things. So at the moment, I'm not in the best of places, but I'm staying positive because I'm sure that once the consultant knows sort of what level I've got, you can deal with it. Me out on the tablets.
Well, of course, the good news is that there are now several treatments. I mean, certainly when Kaz was diagnosed, it was basically steroids, and that was virtually it, as Jeremy said. These days, there are lots of different alternatives, but I would suggest it's really worth your while thinking about getting in touch with the Multiple Sclerosis Society to talk to other people who've been affected, other people who've been through this really dark time like you've got, and come out the other side.
Vicky, thank you so much for your call and all the best. Really tough time. Christine Matthews in Huddersfield says, I lost my daughter 4.5 years ago. She had primary progressive MS. That's the worst one. There's no cure. You just go down and down and down. She was unable to eat and drink and talk. All she could do was blink her eyes and move her head from side to side. And this type of MS does not get the attention it deserves.
No.
Now, on that score, let us talk to Sylvia Bailey in Hayling Island, which is, I think, near Portsmouth. Hi, Sylvia.
Hello there, good afternoon.
And you've got this type, which is the worst kind.
Well, I suppose it's the worst kind. I'm sort of 5 years down the line with it, really. Now, thankfully, I can still move about and do things with difficulty, but my intention is to still keep moving as much as I can. It's my walking that is affected mainly.
Can they give you any... Sorry to interrupt. Can they give you anything for it, or is it just a different category?
This is the most frustrating thing for me, is the medical profession just don't seem to be able to offer anything at all for people with primary progressive. It's just something that we've got and we will have to put up with, and it will just slowly get worse. And that's a bit sad, really. I'm hoping that they'll do lots of research, and I'm sure that there is in the background lots of research going on. I know the MS Society sort of concentrating on this area of MS at the moment.
That's absolutely right, Sylvia. There's been a huge amount of research. One of the big problems we've got is that it is very difficult when we've got something that is not curable, and autoimmune diseases where your own body is turning on itself is particularly difficult. The interesting thing is that research has shown that on average the amount of disability you've got after 5 years is about 3/4 of the amount of disability that you'll get after 10 to 15 years. So if you're still active now, I think there's a good chance that you're not going to deteriorate too much in the next 5 to 10 years.
So it can level off, can it?
It does seem to. The evidence says about 3/4 of the disability you're going to get by 15 years is already there by 5.
The caller we had, the mum whose daughter, it just got worse and worse and then she died, that is not a positive outcome.
No, it's not. And primary progressive MS is horrible. But even in people who've got symptoms that get worse and worse and they don't get any respite in between, they don't all go downhill at the same
Sylvia,
rate.
Thanks to you as well, Sylvia, and bless you, thank you. Andy emails, I was diagnosed with MS 4 years ago, aged 40, and apart from tiredness, haven't had any major problems since my initial lapse, which affected, again, my eyes and my balance. My second cousin has severe MS but is unable to do anything. Is there a genetic family link? And you said yes to that.
Interestingly, what we know is that if it's mother, father, brother, sister, then yes, almost certainly. It's a lot more vague and a lot less likely It's possible, Andy, but it's not terribly likely.
Can I just ask you about age as well? The two ladies that we had on, I don't want to guess their ages, but they sounded like they might be 50 plus. But then we've also seen Kaz, and she got it when she was 18. Is it equal chances or what?
No, hugely variable. Average age round about 30. So in fact, we've heard, I think, from Vicky, we've heard from Holly. They're both diagnosed early to mid 20s, and I think that sort of age is round about the time that we would be looking at. Usually young adults, but it can affect you later. Once you've reached 40, you're relatively unlikely. I never say never, but
Is that
you're
right?
relatively unlikely after that.
So
It's one of the
people
few
listening to this
advantages.
thinking this is one of the dreaded diseases, as you get past 30, your chances of getting it go down.
Certainly as you get past 40, your chances of getting it go down.
How interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. Marie, and that's not the same with Parkinson's, I'm assuming. That's the other way round.
Parkinson's, unfortunately, it goes up as you get older.
Okay, we'll do that one day. Marie texts, is oxygen therapy beneficial for MS patients? Now, Kaz was referring to hyperbaric therapy.
She was.
There are several centres up and down the country.
Yeah, the reason there are only several centres rather than every hospital in the country having one is that this is very difficult. Over the years, I've heard different theories. There have been some studies which have shown that it has helped, some studies which have shown that it hasn't. As far as I'm aware, the evidence is that it doesn't consistently help you. We do know that NICE, the National Institute for Clinical Excellence, has looked at multiple sclerosis and has looked at all the options available for you. So it may well be worth your while, if you're interested, have a look at all the studies that are on there because they are conflicting.
And I want to end this on a positive note because there are people who've been diagnosed and when they get the diagnosis, they think it's the end. And
Absolutely.
it wasn't. It isn't. Elaine emails, I was diagnosed with primary progressive MS at the age of 21. I'm now 31, I've got 2 children, and I'm a year away from qualifying as a psychotherapist, so there is hope.
Fantastic.
Isn't that great?
Good for you. And again, we've topped and tailed with positive stuff. Kaz, I think, is an inspiration to us all, and here we have another one.
And if you're on Twitter and you want to see more about Kaz's clear guide to MS, you can use the hashtag MSClearGuide. I'll tweet something on that in just a moment. Dr. Sarah Jarvis, as always, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
It's Radio 2.